everyone. My name's Susan Mara Bregman, and I'm the author of New England Sweets, Donuts, Bonbons, and Whoopie Pies. And this is New England Has a Sweet Tooth, a podcast that unwraps the stories behind the region's extraordinary array of baked, fried, dipped, sugared, and frozen treats. From Necco wafers to fluffernutters, we'll look at the sweets that define New England's sugary legacy. This episode looks at Sky Bar, the iconic chocolate bar that Necco introduced in 1938. Sometimes known as a candy box in a bar, Sky Bar had four fillings in a single candy bar. I spoke with Louise Mawhinney, who acquired Sky Bar at the Necco bankruptcy auction in 2018 and began manufacturing them without any confectionery experience. After a quick introduction, Louise told me how she came to rescue this historic candy bar.
I'm Louise Mawhinney. I'm the crazy person that bought Sky Bar from the Necco auction in September 2018. I'm also the owner of an iconic gourmet food store in Sudbury called Duck Soup. So I guess I'm into rescuing things.
Well, thank you, Louise. So, obvious question. So you were, a tech CFO?
Yeah, biotech.
Biotech CFO.
Yes.
So how does a biotech CFO end up buying a candy bar?
Well, it's not as completely out of the realms of sense as you might think.
Okay.
Because I always worked at smaller companies. So for me, putting together a startup company was what I had done for 20 years or something. I'd done a couple of IPOs. I was actually ready to retire because I didn't want to do all the travel that is involved in, getting people to invest in your company. And so the first thing that happened was Duck Soup was going to close. And I knew the owner, and he had said to me, "Oh, why don't you come and run it?" And I said, "I have no interest in running a retail store." But I stepped in to save it, and I've had a blast, but I do consider myself retired from my primary job. The Sky Bar was exactly like setting up a biotech company from scratch. You had to put everything together. And in fact, I'm very proud to say that because of my expertise in that, we were ready to go to market 5 months before anybody else that bought another Necco product.
Wow.
Because I knew how to hustle and get things done and get it all set up. The huge shock for me, which I still haven't got over, was I had always in the past said, "So here's your brand new shiny company and with all the parts, and I've got everything ready, all the back end, and now go and do your scientific thing." There was nobody to hand this off to. And I had no clue, and I'm not technically, savvy or anything. I don't fix cars or, the machinery in there was overwhelming. So we have stumbled, and it has taken us longer than it should have to get to this point. But I'm incredibly proud of what people who had nothing, going for them have been able to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really very impressive. And, so Necco was an iconic New England brand. It was the New England Confectionery Company. And so Sky Bar was just one of the several brands that they were auctioning off when they went bankrupt in 2018. So how did you stumble across Sky Bar? What spoke to you about it?
Right. So being the owner of Duck Soup since 2014, I knew what my customers liked, and people had asked us to bring Sky Bar into Duck Soup. And I had somebody who was a huge fan of Sky Bar and must have signed up for their email updates. So he kept on updating me on the bankruptcy. And the bankruptcy took a long time because it was on again, off again, this one, that one. I mean, it just didn't work out the way they were hoping. They wanted someone to take over Necco. That didn't work. So I think the people that were buying the other brands decided they wanted nothing to do with this incredibly difficult bar to make. And so that was unbeknownst to me. But the night there were 2 final auctions, which were just to get rid of tiny pieces of equipment. Everything else had been sold, all the main brands, and there were just bits and pieces. And it was supposed to happen in person in Revere. but they lost power. So they flipped it to online. And I heard about this on the local news on the Wednesday, and the last day of the auction was the Thursday. So on Wednesday night, there was actually a commentator saying, but nobody knows what's happening to the Sky Bar. Nobody has bought it. And I thought to myself, that's ridiculous, because I knew how popular it was. Absolutely knew that it shouldn't be allowed to die. So the Thursday morning, very last day, very last auction, this huge super fan sends me over a link to the auction and says, go bid on Sky Bar. So walked the dogs, came back, made a cup of coffee. Wasn't quite time to open the store. And I clicked on the link, and it said, you have to register to open this. So I registered. So then the very first thing that popped up was Sky Bar. And I thought, again, how strange, right? Because I don't know how to do auctions. Very strange. So I didn't know what to do next. Don't know what to do with auction. So I scrolled to the bottom of the screen, and it said, if you have questions, call this number. I called the number, and you could hear noise in the background. They're getting ready to open this auction. And the guy that answered the phone yelled over to a woman, hey, who's handling Sky Bar? And she goes, oh, it's blah, 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 but he'll never answer his phone. He turns around, not realizing I'd heard that, gives me this phone number. I call this number. It's peace, quiet. It's definitely not at the auction. And I said, hey, I, like to bid on Sky Bar, but I really don't know what to do. And he goes, that's great. I will take everything, I'll take your details. You can give me your bid. And so then somebody called me to get wiring, give me wiring information, all that stuff. So I was set up. And he said, hopefully in 30 minutes, you'll be the proud owner of Sky Bar. And I was at that point ready to back out. Like, no, this has gone too far already.
Wow.
And it turned out that this was a really nice gentleman called Jim Greenberg, who runs Equiption Auctioneer. And his family had been associated through multiple generations with providing equipment to Necco. So he was running the auction that was getting rid of this equipment. And I'm sure he'd sold all of the equipment. And he did tell me, he said, there's no equipment. I said, that's fine. I don't want it. I don't want it. Because at that point, I had no dream of ever making it myself. I just assumed that if I got it, I'd find someone to make it for me. Yeah. So he told me afterwards that he threw in Sky Bar at that final day as a last-ditch attempt because he couldn't bear to see it not there. And so, it was just complete luck. So anyway, that was how I got it.
When you acquired Sky Bar, you acquired the intellectual property, you acquired the recipes. So one of the things you were saying is the recipes have changed over the years. So how did you land on what you're using now and what ingredients go into today's Sky Bar?
We did taste testing. We have a lot of people that work at Duck Soup, a lot of teenagers. And so we had a whole bunch of slightly different tweaks on the 4 basic tastes, which are caramel, peanut, vanilla, and fudge. Having 4 different centers, very different like that, creates challenges in the manufacturing because they've all got to be the same viscosity and temperature and not first through the chocolate. So they've all got to play nicely, and as you know, if you've ever cooked or made anything, things vary. It depends on the temperature, it depends on the humidity. So it's an art. It's a science, but it's an art as well.
Yeah. And great news for Sky Bar lovers. When those ingredients don't play nicely, Louise sells the imperfect Sky Bars as oopsies, and they taste just as good. Necco introduced Sky Bar in 1938. Sky Bar's branding tapped into the public fascination with aviation, and the nickel bar was part of Necco's Skyline, which also included Sky Peps and Sky Toffee. And sticking with that theme, Necco launched the chocolate bar with a skywriting campaign, spelling out Sky Bar 5 cents in letters a mile high. Louise told me more.
And then they had that wonderful skywriting campaign to introduce it. So one person came in, people have always been coming in, and brought me this newspaper from 1938 that he'd found at the bottom of a trunk in a yard sale.
Yeah.
And on the front page was the two princesses from Britain.
Oh, Elizabeth
and Margaret.
Yeah.
And at the very bottom was the advert for the Skybar skywriting campaign. And then in the middle, there's like a half page talking about this brand new bar that's coming out. So what they did was they decided that they were going to do a skywriting campaign, and they were going to take a biplane. That's why there's a picture of a plane in there. And they're going to write Skybar in the air. And they did it. They did it over a series of about 3 weeks. And I don't know if they did it every day or one day a week. I can't remember. But they advertised that they were going to advertise it. And I think it was like a first. One of those things was the first, and that wasn't the Skybar writing campaign. They'd done that before. I think it was the advertising that they were going to advertise. It was a real novelty. And a lady came in, and I told her she didn't look old enough. She said she remembered being on the Cape, lying down in the grass and looking up and seeing it.
And it just said Skybar?
When she was young.
Wow.
Yeah, Skybar.
So you were going to tell me about the man who allegedly invented Skybars?
Yes.
And what was
So
his spell?
Joseph
Mm-hmm.
Cangemi.
Cangemi.
And if you look him up on Wikipedia, I think his family has put stuff in there. It's impossible. I have not found anyone who can confirm or deny that. The family believes it. One of his nephews who got in touch with me tried to find out about 10, 15 years ago, and the company would say nothing. But the story was that he invented the Skybar.
He was a Necco employee?
He was a Necco employee. And then he got paid some kind of royalty after that, which helped to put his children through college. Now, that has a ring of truth, because somebody who lives in Sudbury said that he'd actually designed the Skybar wrapper and that he was paid as a sort of a royalty thing.
Interesting.
And that's how they paid him for the based on the number of Skybars sold. So it seems like they had that
some sort of deal.
Yeah,
maybe that's how they.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So he was a young man in World War I, and he was on a ship. He was a naval guy. He was on a ship doing a victory parade in Boston Harbor that had come all the way from Italy, and he jumped ship and he swam ashore.
Oh, so he was an Italian soldier.
He was an Italian soldier doing a thing, and he jumped off the ship and he swam ashore in Boston Harbor, and he deserted. And there was already an Italian community that I'm sure took him in. He literally had nothing. He got hired by a different candy company, but they didn't treat Italian immigrants well at all. They were terrible. So then he switched over to Necco. With that little bit of experience he got, he switched to Necco, and he had a wonderful career there. And I was talking to his daughter. So his granddaughter contacted me. I asked if I could speak to her mother, and her mother did a telephone interview with me and said that, she always remembered how her father was into, the candy making. And at Easter, he would make everything from scratch. And then he would hide these Easter eggs and they would find them. And he was always working at home trying to invent new things. And she said that she believed that he had invented the bolster bar, which came before Skybar, but didn't say anything about it and didn't get anything for it. So he was more assertive with the Skybar. There is a newspaper clipping that I've seen where, Necco was very family-oriented. They took good care of their workers. I just wish everywhere was like that now. But that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
But they had these year-end parties. And at one of them, they did presentations of awards to people who had gone out of their way. And his name is mentioned for inventing a little trap that went along the line to stop the sugar from falling on the floor so that they could reuse it. Yeah. So he definitely was an inventor. And nobody else has stepped forward to say that they invented it. So I have a feeling. I mean, obviously, everything was owned by Necco. And the bad part is, because it was a privately held company, all the records are gone.
Yeah.
If it was publicly held, you could at least try to track something down. Yeah.
So that's the story of Skybar. After 80 years at Necco, This 4-in-1 candy bar with an aviation twist is back in production thanks to Louise Mawhinney. You can buy Sky Bars at Louise's shop, Duck Soup, in Sudbury, Massachusetts, at selected stores around the country, and online from skybarcandy.com. That's www.skybarcandy.com. And here's a fun fact. Sky Bar is now the only former Necco confection that is still manufactured in Massachusetts. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and a big thanks to Louise Mawhinney for rescuing Sky Bar and for sharing her story. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. And to catch all the latest news from me, Susan Bregman, you can visit my website at www.rednickel.com. That's red like the color, nickel like the coin.com. Or follow me on Instagram at rednickelneon. And you can find copies of my book, New England Sweets, on my website or wherever books are sold. Stay sweet, New England.